Welcome back to the Sounds of the Baskerville. It's Chris Baskerville. How are you? The Hound.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. An afternoon show. So probably better with a cocktail. But anyway, good to see you, Pierce Carstensen. Thank you very much for coming back.
Thank you.
So last episode, or vodcast, you gave us a lot of the kind of a bit of the kind of why you and Chris should be not only friends socially, but also there's a real interreaction between.
The jury's still out on that, James.
Okay, run with it for now. We've only got 15 minutes. But the point is that, there's a real role for insolvency practitioners in the family law scenario in certain circumstances. You gave us a really good overview of when those times could be.
Yep.
Okay, let's get our hands dirty. Let's talk about when some of this sort of stuff's happened. So is there an example or a time you can think of that some of this stuff that we talked about last episode kind of rings true?
There are. I mean, we could. There's 100 stories about how it kind of rolls in with insolvency law.
But even if it doesn't, tell us a story.
Family law in general, though, is replete with good stories. I always say that family law is pretty funny if it's not happening to you.
Yeah.
And that has remained true over many, many years.
Yeah.
And I actually had someone come up to me at a barbecue and the other day and said, tell me, what's the most common reason why people separate? And I started telling him, it's very boring about communicating with your spouse. I mean, it's not very exciting stuff. Anyway, but I said, forget that though. Let me tell you a good story. And and so the one I normally roll out first, because it's a happy story, had a good ending. But there was two people. They lived down in Sydney, married for 40 years, long time, and worth about $20 million. They were wholesale diamond merchants living in Vaucluse. It all, checks all the boxes. Anyway, worth about 20 mil. The wife, her mother, passes away, and she is worth about 20 mil, and all that's going to come to this couple. And the wife says, when probate's nearing and the money's going to come in soon, says to the husband, we should go to the Hong Kong Diamond Expo. And he goes, yeah, righto, that sounds great. That's the kind of thing we often do. She goes, great. And then she pulls the laptop out and she said, I'll get the tickets. He goes, oh, okay, well, it's normally what I do, but fair enough. Thanks. Well, so she does that. She goes, I actually got your tickets on points. So I'm going straight to Hong Kong, but you're going via Singapore. He goes, oh, okay, that's fine. Thanks for that. Anyway, day before they depart, he's going to leave the day before. Day before he departs, she comes downstairs. She goes, I packed your bag for you. He goes, oh, that's lovely. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. She goes, and I put it in the boot of the car and I'll drive you. He goes, oh, you do too much. Too good a wife. Too good a wife.
Unbelievable.
So he jumps on the plane. They fly to Singapore. He gets off for his 2-hour layover, walks out looking for a burger and gets a tap on the shoulder and turns around. There's two nondescript Singaporeans and says, oh, can I help you? They go, oh, yes, we just want to, we're the secret police. We're just going to take you into this room. We've got your bag. We just want to have a look at it. He goes, oh, okay, fair enough. Strange, must be a random thing. Goes in there, they open up the bag, and there's this 8-ball of Coke strapped to the inside of the bag. And we basically Post-it stickers with little arrows, pointing to it, so no one could miss it.
Wrapped in neon.
And yeah. And they say, oh, okay, buddy, you're coming with us, and I just want to tell you that that's importing drugs into Singapore. That's a capital offence, and the way we do things, you're off to death row, and then you can work your way out from there if you're sufficiently lucky.
Right.
And so off he goes, rings the wife, says, listen, I've just been picked up for running drugs into Singapore. She goes, well, why did you do that? And he goes, I didn't do it.
I didn't do it.
Yeah. And I don't know what's happened, but I certainly didn't do it. And I need money for a lawyer. And she goes, but you just told me you were running drugs into Singapore. He goes, yeah, but I need a lawyer. She goes, that just sounds like we'd be throwing good money after bad. And that was the end of the phone call. Then he's got to wait another month to make another phone call. And he rings up his adult daughters and they get a private investigator onto the matter. And he contacts me for some assistance. And I say, oh, well, okay, well, first things first, this guy needs money for a lawyer. What we'll do is we'll do a partial property settlement in the family court. So we'll go off to the family court. We'll say this guy needs an amount of money. There's plenty of money there. Say $500,000 to fund his legal fight in Singapore. We speak to this guy over the phone. We said, so we're going to run that in the family court. He goes, okay, well, that makes sense. But one question in my mind is, how do we do that if we haven't separated? I said, oh, buddy, I think you need to be separated. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, because I think your wife put drugs in your bag, buddy. Yeah. And he goes, no, it wasn't. It wouldn't have been her. Why would she have done it? And I thought to myself, am I in some bizarre alternate reality here? Like, who else would have done it? Who else packed your bag and is about to inherit $20 million? I feel it all lines up. I haven't played Cluedo for a while, but I reckon all the elements are there. And
you're telling me you're the bloke who broke it to him?
And he goes, no. I said, okay, well, nonetheless, this is the only way I see that you're going to get the money for your lawyer. So we're just going to have to pretend. Okay, we'll just pretend it's her, right? And you are separated. The definition of separation is living separately. There was a case called Stanford that set all that out. So we're not lying, we're not misleading the court, but we just have to be able to say that you're separated. You need a partial property settlement. Okay? He goes, fine. Okay, we'll do that. A legal fiction, you called it. We'll stick with that. I said, great. Oh my God. Anyway, I worked with the private investigator, and we were able to demonstrate how unlikely it was that this guy was running an 8-ball into Singapore and decided not to hide it or anything like that, and said some other things, made some submissions, and then very, very surprisingly, they actually let him go, and so we're able to get him off. And it certainly wasn't just me who did that. A lot of other people worked very hard to get him out. But anyway, he's flown back to Australia, and he's very excited. He's a big homecoming to see his wife again, and he turns up there. About 3 hours later, she's called the police and alleged some domestic violence incident, and so he gets escorted out. And so now he accepts that he has to have a property settlement. He's got no money. Yeah, she's living in the house in Vaucluse. She's got all the cash. Got no money, and so the first thing I do is I send a subpoena off to Vodafone, because I want to see who the wife has been talking to in this period leading up to the trip. And so the subpoena is returned to the court. So the court's got all the phone records. In the meantime, her lawyer sends me the 20-page summary of all the calls, but it's missing page 11. And on the bottom of page 10, it says, no further calls made this day. Page 11's missing. And then we go on to page 12. And funnily enough, that page 11 was the day he flew overseas. What a coincidence. Amazing. So we subpoena it, right? And we asked for permission to inspect. They object to the subpoena. The solicitors object to us getting that one page of the subpoena. There's a hearing. The registrar says, no, I'll release it. Doesn't seem to be any harm. So they review the decision of the registrar. And so we have this in-person hearing. And they go and retain certainly one of the two best family law barristers in Australia, like a real heavyweight. And $25,000 a day, and he'd always charge a day prep, day appearance, so that's $50,000. As a junior barrister, who's also a very senior junior, let's just say that one's 10. Then you've got the partner of the law firm, the senior associate, and a junior. So let's just say it's say $80,000 on that side of the bar table. We definitely did want to see this, and so we had Silk as well, and we had a hearing that went the better part of a day that concerned whether or not the provision of this statement that would allow us to see whether or not she tipped off the Singaporean police was relevant to the family law matter, the property settlement, and how it was. And on the face of it, it's not. which very interested to know if she tried to set him up to be executed, so she could keep all the money. It's more of a conspiracy for murder than anything else. And ultimately, the court said, your interest in seeing this probably doesn't rise to a level such that it would be relevant to the property settlement. Now, under the current legislation, it almost certainly would. It would hopefully, one would hope, it would be seen as a family violence to try and plot to kill your husband, and probably would. In those days, it didn't, and so we never saw it. We never saw it, unfortunately. Never actually got the smoking gun.
Wow.
That would show that she was the one who phoned the police.
How convenient that one page was missing, and they spend $80,000 to stop that one page being
such a coincidence.
Yeah,
such a coincidence. And ultimately, 40-year relationship. The $20 million of their property was split 50-50, and then the money that came in over this period of time from the mother, the husband got some of that as well. It wasn't a very complex matter. These people were in their 60s. They would have struggled to spend the money they got anyway.
It'd be the kids behind them.
Well, all the kids, though, were largely separate. And often we do find that kids form camps behind one parent or the other. But it wasn't the case here. It was just, some rampant greed.
Yeah, don't underestimate greed.
But
so
it was
we've had some good stories on this show, and that's certainly that'd be one of the better ones we've heard, isn't it? I think that's up there with some of the
that's it. It's now the sounds of Carstensen. I'm now redundant from my own show.
Yeah.
But
so there are situations though when you guys have work together. I mean, that's a fascinating story. But is there situations where you could say, an example where you two have, like you told us last episode, you had to wait 9 years to get something. Often you must get faster results than that. You must be faster than that.
Yeah, well, it was a super complex. Well, sorry, not so much super complex, but we were up against tough opponents, even from the liquidation side. And Pierce got to see the opponent at full noise. Personally, I believe you went all the way to the High Court in one of the the challenges.
We got the property settlement done by way of consent. It's property and parenting.
Yeah.
On about, I think, day 2 of trial, after the cross-examination of the wife, we got a consent order, which was in perfectly fair and reasonable terms. And I think her counsel worked very hard to elicit that. But then she had second thoughts a few weeks later and appealed. And it went to the full court and was shot down. And then she applied for special leave to the High Court, and that was refused. And then she filed a separate application to void the orders, and that was thrown out. And then she ran a half a dozen contravention applications. And one funny thing that wasn't particularly legally related, but all the money was coming from the sale of this property down in New South Wales, in Sydney. And we had all been waiting a long time for this. And, I was doing it on a deferred basis. So I definitely wanted to get paid. Everyone else was wanting to get paid. And there's plenty of money in this property. That was where
I'd say some of the parties probably in their hearts wouldn't have minded if it would be over.
No, yeah, that too. Well, one party was more than keen to continue, but certainly our client was willing to get it all paid. Anyway, the auction was on the internet, and I couldn't watch it. I went, but let's just say that the wife's name was Janet. I got a text from one of my staff members who did. They all sat back at work and over a bottle of wine, I think, watched the auction. Someone texted. They go, Jeanette just won the auction. I thought, but she's got no money to buy the house. All this is going to do is delay everything. She's probably committed a further fraud. This is now going to be another 2 years of my life. Oh, disaster. Anyway, so I reported it to the managing partner. I said, we're all waiting on this money, but I worry it's going to be delayed another 12, 18 months because of Jeanette, who's now gone off and put this bid. She won't be able to settle on the contract, but it's all just going to go again. And so I'm sorry, it's going to be, I would guess, another 12 to 18 months. And I went back to our section in the office, And someone said, where were you? I said, I just spoke to the managing partner, told them that Jeanette won the bid and the auction rather, and we're not going to see that money for a while. They're like, we were joking. She didn't really. And I'm like, oh my.
That's a little family law
Yeah.
joke in
Yeah.
there by your own doing.
Gotcha.
But I think what's relevant in this context, and I think just to paint the picture of the persons that we're dealing with, they were husband and wife at one stage. Husband really had no money. The wife came from wealth. So they then set up a business, but they put the husband in as the director, which makes sense, Now, obviously, through the splitting of the property here, which is where the wealth element was, the husband is still responsible to the creditors for what he has caused harm to them. So that's my job, is to basically represent that part. Pierce was obviously to get the property settled. But yeah, the lying in wait was basically waiting for when does the money moment come, and then we had to basically go and sue the husband as if it was part of the on behalf of all the creditors that he caused harm with his director hat on.
Yeah. So in theory, I guess we were actually on opposing sides to a degree. But of course, if you go off and do your job right and you're able to prove all these debts and this, my client clearly owed them. There was, insofar as he did, there was no doubt about that. We got the money. We got his entitlement. Those debts were taken into account during the property settlement, that they were debts that were owing by him, and they were taken into account. And that's part of the reason, at least, why he got the amount he did, because he would then have to go off and settle those debts. And ultimately, that's what happened. So I think the creditors were taking care of you guys, that the professionals were taking care of. My client got a fair outcome. It was good. I mean, that's how the law should work, right?
Yeah, that was common sense. Common sense law.
Yeah, that's right.
Have you ever chased a rat bag? Some fella who tried to hide it. You've done that before. You chase rat bags all the time.
Oh yeah, that's my side hustle.
Yeah.
My primary job is to save business. The side hustle is chasing the rat bags.
Yeah.
There was one of your colleagues rang me up last year. There was a well known in some circles anyway, a barrister, and he had entered into a loan with a brothel madam, as you do. It's where I get all my
that's where I get my money from.
Mm-hmm. And but she'd done everything properly. She'd got it, a loan agreement. She got it all done up. Anyway, he later down the track said he's not going to pay, and so she sued him for it. Sued him on the agreement, and she won. And then she went to collect, and he goes, terrible news. I've split the sheets with the missus, and she got everything. I don't have a cent to my name. What do you do? And then he entered into bankruptcy. And so we were approached by the trustee. We were approached by this lady, rather, to deal with the trustee and try and recover this money. But to do that, what had to happen was the family law agreement had to be overturned, which was not particularly challenging. There are very hard and fast.
Oh, so you're saying it was a little too easy. In fact, from the perspective of a barrister, he probably could have done better than that. Or you think it's just the very fact of that artifice was inadequate in the beginning?
Well, both really.
Yeah,
both.
yeah.
I mean, it's one of the truisms of family law is that every kid wins a prize. If you're together with someone for 20 years, and at law, the starting point isn't officially that it's 50-50, but, people should be getting an amount of money which represents their contributions, and your contributions over a long relationship tend towards being equal. So put those two things together, and if someone walks out of a 20-year relationship with 0%, then there are some very significant questions to ask, and finding answers to those.
And that's what I think is really. I think that really changed my mindset. And I asked Pierce this ages ago: does anybody in family law in Australia walk out with 100% of the joint collective property pool generated by husband or by spouses, right? And generally, the answer is no.
Very, very rare.
Like, in other words, so then put it in the insolvency context, right? If some of the interests that creditors want, or the property vesting in either the company or a trustee, and it involves the property between two warring spouses in family law, it doesn't mean that any one of those parties is going to walk away with 100%. There is an interest in the property pool that we have.
Yeah.
And we just got to take proactive steps to get it.
And really simply and quickly, the way property settlements work is that the very first step is working out what the net property pool is, which is the assets of the parties, however owned, whether in their own names, joint names, or in the names of companies or trusts that they control. So very wide. Minus the liabilities that are sorted out in the same way. And then there is a net property pool that's divided. So taken to its conclusion, it means that the liabilities of the parties get paid out of the assets of the parties, and then the party splits what's left. Now, there are some very discrete times where that may be changed slightly, but if the liabilities are being paid out of the assets and then the parties divide what's left over, well, you can see that the third-party creditors are in a really strong position. They just need to be able to put their case properly and prove those debts. But it's not, and it should not be a difficult task to do so. And often, I would say that it's easier to do that in the family law space than in the state courts. Not least because in the family courts, there are very, very wide compulsive powers, and it's relatively easy to reverse transactions, and it's relatively easy to infer ownership into assets. So for lots of reasons, I think it's often a court of choice, or it could be a court of choice, to recover all these assets.
And that's interesting because there is a roll-up effect if and this is written in the relevant statutes in Bankruptcy and Corporations Act, that I think if we are commencing an action that is dealing with property that would otherwise be considered in the property settlement, I believe the family court has the power, or those Supreme Courts and Federal Court had the power to roll that matter into the family court. So in other words, it's kind of like saying, well, you are challenging property that is already being challenged under a family law environment. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. Everyone's going to roll straight into the family court, and we deal with it in one by a judge or registrar.
And the Division 1 of the Federal Family Court and Federal Circuit Court, which is the old family court, but we'll say family court, has accrued jurisdiction and can deal with matters under the Corporations Act, the Bankruptcy Act anyway. So while those judges might not be as familiar as the judges in other jurisdictions with those matters, I mean, there's still the power to appoint receivers and deal with liquidators, and all those different things that you would see under the Corporations Act can be done in the family court as well. And there are a number of members at the bar who can deal with those questions, barristers who can deal with those questions as well. So there just isn't any good reason to avoid conflict in the family court if you can otherwise prove your debts.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. That's what I've learned over the years, and I've certainly had a lot more confidence having a PS in my camp.
Sadly, we've gone from drug running into Singapore to back to insolvency again.
That's the sound of the basketball. We go from anything from bags of this to things of that. That's been fascinating. So I think we've kind of gone from the how to the why to the what. And I really appreciate you coming in, Piers. That's been really enlightening. And I think this is kind of a must-listen couple of episodes for people who are in a situation where they're with business in distress, or there's family law matters afoot, or you're a creditor in a situation that's been confronted with perhaps an effort to try and hide monies from you. These two episodes are a must listen, I would describe it. So I really appreciate you coming in. Thanks again, Chris, for once again the great insight. Well, imagine that, you and I being stuck for words. Who knew? Yeah. But anyway, awesome. We'll get you back. Let's go. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.